Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Reckoning of Roku chapter analysis video. This one is going to be for chapter 54, which is called Ever Shifting Currents. Once again, YouTube channel membership is enabled on the channel if you would like to help support, and also subscribing helps. But yeah, second last chapter of the book. We only have the epilogue to go after this. The epilogue is a Sozin point of view chapter, so this is the last Roku chapter in the book. It's short, and it's basically Roku continuing his air nomad training and fully embracing it, showing us that here's what he's like back in his normal training, now that he's done all this development from the kind of plot of this book, basically. So it's a few weeks later. He's with Sister Disha here in the Southern Air Temple, and it's this stone training pit here, and he's doing this special airbending exercise that's designed for fire avatars, because it involves fire, and it's meant to make him not use his firebending, but use his airbending to sort of like put out the fire. Now, what's going on here is that there's a fire in the middle of this kind of like arena, and it's surrounded by like straw on all sides and like scattered throughout the arena. And it's windy, and so the idea is that the straw is always on the verge of maybe being set fire by the flame in the middle. And he has to use his airbending to put out the fire at the center. And obviously, Roku's not an expert airbender at this point after only like a few weeks of proper training, of course, and he doesn't have empowered airbending in the cave anymore, that sort of thing. So this is a lot more challenging than it actually comes across. Disha explains to him that this is a key thing in terms of learning the philosophy of airbending versus firebending. Firebending is like channeling your energy in straight, direct lines that project your flames outwards to your target, using your will to drive it towards the goal. But with airbending, you have to, use spiral movements and be aware of the kind of flow more. That this is a philosophy thing, because if Roku does just use his airbending like a firebender and uses airbending in a direct fashion, he'll just blow the fire kind of in a way like onto the straw. So he has to be more careful about how he does this. And it's like influencing the air around the fire and then manipulating it to eventually put the fire actually out. So that's the whole idea here. The most interesting detail probably from the chapter is this. The breeze also made Roku shiver as it slid over his head, which Gyatso had helped him shave that morning, making Roku already regret agreeing to go bald, so long as the irritating air nomad promised to never comment on his hair again. So Roku shaves his hair here, so that's something we didn't know that he actually did. So that speaks to him very much being like, no, I'll do this too. I will separate myself from being the Fire National Avatar, and I'll go along with this, because this is what we know of Roku. He, during his training, goes on to really adapt to the culture of each of the nations he goes to as he trains in the other elements. And I guess to be a true air nomad, he feels like he has to do this. And so that's just cool little detail to get. It does prompt the idea of the scene that we've addressed. Sorry, not this one, actually. Sorry, this. Where does this scene actually take place? Because I think I talked about this in like the previous chapter as well. The idea of like Roku makes his own staff, but then we find out that during some of his training he is bald. So the only thing that I can come to the conclusion of is that this scene takes place in the few weeks between this chapter and the previous one. That way, because it says here he shaved his head that morning, so he had still had his like hair for all the previous weeks of doing training. And it seems like Roku wasn't particularly good at airbending, of course, right at the start here. And it would make sense that, he now knows Gyatso pretty well. And I think that's probably the intent here, is that this scene takes place just before this chapter. And like I said, he's probably using a kind of training glider rather than his own one, just in case it gets damaged during the early stages of his training, gliding around the air temples, that sort of thing. So he's then prepared to actually perform the test. He gets prepared, channels his energy, And we addressed the idea that, yeah, it's been slower. He expected his progress to be quicker, but no, it's relatively slow progress. Gyatso has been helping him. There's no easy path to mastering the other elements, but he is making progress. So you can see here his shift in approach and philosophy has very much been helping him here overall. But yeah, he was only now realizing that he had been using his airbending exactly how Sister Disha had described firebending, pushing or slinging the wind in straight, forceful blasts. Avatar Roku acknowledged his self-doubt, recognized its source, then set it aside, his aura smoothed. He searched within himself. He took one more deep breath, focusing on the exhale, on the emptiness that creates the space to receive, perceive, and reshape the air. "I'm ready," he said, and began. So we don't get the result of this, but the idea is, I'm guessing he likely succeeds because he really has made that kind of philosophical sort of step forward as a character to not just be the Fire National, but really understand what it is to be an air nomad and be a spirit of all nations type thing. So a short, but I think a pretty nice chapter to just present that kind of philosophy approach. A needed chapter to not just be like, and we assume his training goes well from here, but no. Here is a scene addressing the kind of that adaptation and what he has grown to kind of change in his approach to airbending. That, in a way, like we got at the start of the book, he hadn't actually properly started his airbending training. As in, Disha was pointing out that the first stage of your training is to have the right philosophy. Now he's finally started his training and is, in a way, only now really starting to truly understand the difference in approach of at least these two elements. And the idea is he's going to have to experience this same thing for water and earth. So interesting stuff. I do think it's a little bit of an odd chapter. It's maybe not the strongest one to sort of end on, but for what this book is about, of like covering his like air training, I think it makes a lot of sense what they are trying to do with this one. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.